Welcome to the channel, and this is another decade build in my decade build series. If you haven't seen the other ones, I'll provide a link down below. And yeah, so we're in the late 90s, and honestly guys, I had such a hard time figuring out what to freaking do for this decade build, because there's not a lot of reference out there for I was thinking about doing like a 90s Scandinavian style home or a Japanese like minimalistic 90s home, but there was like nothing. So instead, I decided to go for another suburban home, and I know I've built nothing but Suburbans up until now, since the early 80s, I think, but rest assured that hopefully when we start getting to the more present time, then we'll get into more architecturally interesting homes. But yeah, so this home is I kind of took inspiration from the Southeast. I grew up in Florida, so a lot of what I put in this home is from my memories, from my friend's house, and even from houses that I've lived in. So yeah, and don't mind the roofing that I have here. I ended up changing it because even though this is more accurate to what the houses looked like, it just wasn't looking right in The Sims, and sometimes you have to make that compromise. So I decided to change the roofs later on in the build. But yeah, so those of you who were alive in the 90s, you would know all about the very fast-paced technological advancements that happened during the time. A ton of technology was developed, and especially in the late 90s, but not without some fear and anxiety. Y2K was actually a big scare, and it spread fear throughout the US and eventually the world in the last half of the decade, particularly in 1999, about possible massive computer malfunctions on January 1st, 2000, and as a result, many people stocked up on supplies for fear of worldwide disaster, which at the time, 1999, I was either 9 or 10. I was 9. So I remember this happening and people like being scared out of their minds that, the world would end because the computers would crash and malfunction and everything. Ooh, so that little satellite, it's actually a spy satellite, but it reminded me of Dish satellite networks, and I'll get to that later, but okay, so Y2K was like, it was a thing, and I personally don't know why it was a thing for so long, but it was. So yeah, people stocked up on supplies, and after significant efforts to upgrade systems on the part of software engineers, no failures occurred when the clocks rolled over into 2000. So thank you, software engineers, for saving the world. Instant messaging and the buddy list feature became popular in the late 90s. AIM, or AOL Instant Messenger, and ICQ are two early processes for instant messaging. I remember having AOL and AOL Instant Messenger, or AIM, and making sure I had the perfect username and the perfect profile with super colorful text, because who were you if you didn't have AIM and you didn't have a super awesome profile? And don't even think about not setting up away messages. I actually memorized the dial-up connection sounds when AOL was booting up. The and then like the clicks. Because I would get on there so often that I ended up memorizing the dial-up sounds. And I would sometimes like sing along to it. So the introduction of affordable smaller satellite dishes for TV, which is what you saw earlier that I put on the house, and the DVB-S standard in the mid-90s expanded satellite television services that carried up to 500 TV channels, and nowadays there's like thousands. But most people just watch Netflix or Hulu or other streaming services, so satellite TV is pretty much out of date because after satellite, cable TV happened. So the first MP3 player, the MP Man, is released in the late spring of 1998, and it came with 32 megabytes of flash memory, and it was expandable to 64 megabytes, which like today's standards, that's like nothing. That's like so little, and maybe carried a few songs on it. By the mid 2000s, the MP3 player would overtake the CD player, which was popular in the 90s. Portable CD players, introduced during the late 1980s, became super popular and had a huge impact on the music industry and youth culture during the 90s. I was so excited to get my first CD player. It was white with purple iridescent, like a purple iridescent flip top. And I thought I was like the coolest. And pagers actually were initially popular, but ultimately were replaced by mobile phones by the early 2000s. I don't really remember my family having pagers. I remember we had a cord, like a phone that had a cord on it with like the curly cord, and I would like stick it in my fingers all the time if I was on the phone, like twirl it around my fingers. And I also had a phone that was clear. I don't think it was functional, but I absolutely loved it. And I don't remember what happened to it. I think it just disappeared one day. As far as architecture and pop culture goes, the Petronas Twin Towers became two of the tallest man-made structures ever built after they officially opened on the 31st of August in 1999. I believe they are located in Malaysia, but ever since then they've been surpassed a few times by different structures. I think currently the largest structure is the one in Dubai, but I'm not 100% sure. So Japanese and Swedish decor and minimalism were really popular at this time, especially for wealthier people. Minimalism was reflected in some fashion too, especially the famous 90s slip dresses, and Calvin Klein was popular. The Rachel, aka Jennifer Aniston's hairstyle on the show Friends became a cultural phenomenon, with millions of women copying it worldwide. I seriously couldn't go anywhere without seeing at least like 3 people with Rachel's haircut, or bleach blonde, because bleach blonde hair became really popular too in the late 90s, as was men with short hair that had like their bangs kind of flipped up in the front. I think that was popular too in the well, no, in the early 2000s, it kind of carried over. But yeah, like I remember every guy, before I was a scene kid in the 2000s, I loved like Roxy and Billabong and like surfing name brands that everyone had shirts of. Maybe that was just in Florida, I don't know, but that was very prevalent at the time. Slap bracelets, everyone. Slap bracelets were super popular. They were pretty much like, I don't know, they were definitely a fad, and they were available in different patterns and colors, and I definitely had a few, and my favorite was this like light pink zebra print that was fuzzy. And I remember like when I was bored, I would, take it off, straighten it, and then slap it onto my wrist again, like repeatedly. And that, and I had a Game Boy Color, actually. It was purple. For a while, I think my favorite color was purple during this time. Also, light up sneakers. I freaking loved light up shoes. I had a few of those, and also jelly shoes and shoelace hair clips. Definitely had those, and I had jelly shoes probably in like 4 or 5 different colors, and but there was one pair that I wore all the time, and they were like pink with like sparkly glitter. But oh my gosh, did they make my feet hot. And I remember they were so uncomfortable because they're literally plastic, but I freaking love them. And yeah, so check, and check. And the grunge hype at the beginning of the decade popularized loose flannel shirts, either wearing it normally or tied around the waist with a crop top, and of course, combat boots. The 90s were also an eventful time for film, and the first full-length CGI movie, Pixar's Toy Story, is released, which absolutely revolutionized animated films. I personally love Toy Story, the whole series, all the sequels. I remember that, like, just how much it affected me, and I don't know, it's just one of those movies that, like, stays with you for life. And I know I'm being kind of dramatic, but that's just how it was. The films produced by Walt Disney or Disney Animation Studios became popular again when the studio returned to make like traditional animated movies like they did in the past. And, you know, movies like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King. So this particular era of Disney movies was known as the Disney Renaissance. And I was a Disney fanatic. I still kind of am. I actually, like I said before, I grew up in Florida, and I was often 20 to 30 minutes from Disney World, and I don't know, it's just, I grew up kind of in the Magic Kingdom. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but my grandmother actually worked at Disney from when I was like 6 up until she retired. So yeah, definitely a special place in my heart, that Disney World. So here, I'm actually doing an outdoor, like, enclosed patio area, and just imagine the windows are like a mesh, because that's how the patios were in Florida. Because, like, you wanted to, you know, go to the pool, have a pool party, but the bugs were so bad in Florida that the only way it would be enjoyable is if you had, like, an enclosure. So that's kind of how a lot of the houses were. And then I added this, like, cherry blossom hanging hanging artwork in the bathroom because I thought the colors looked kind of good together, and I wanted to have a little bit of a nod to Japanese culture, because having, a few oriental pieces in the house was pretty normal for the time. I mean, I remember my grandmother and also my mom, they would have like Chinese calendars in the kitchen, and I remember that pretty vividly. But anyway, so I was a Disney fan, and in the 90s and early 2000s, every new Disney movie that came out, that's pretty much what my birthday party theme would be. I've had a Beauty and the Beast birthday, I've had an Ariel birthday, I've had, I even had like I was Esmeralda. So yeah. But other movies were insanely popular that came out during this time too. The top 10 grossing films of the decade were Titanic, Star Wars Episode 1, Jurassic Park, Independence Day, Lion King, Forrest Gump, The Sixth Sense, The Lost World Jurassic Park, and Men in Black. I've only seen 4 out of 10 of these in theaters, and to be honest, classics. Come on. Except for Episode 1, we don't speak of that. As far as music goes, hip-hop became the best-selling music genre by the mid-90s, and Spice Girls were the biggest global pop group of the decade. I was actually not really allowed to listen to Spice Girls, and when I was a kid, I was like secretly obsessed with them, and I listened to them with my best friends when I slept over at their house, so, that's just, how it is. Anime was super popular in the 80s, but it expanded worldwide by the 90s. Shows like Sailor Moon, who have a special place in my heart, and Sailor Moon actually encouraged my love for anime and even my love for drawing. And I really wanted to learn how to draw anime, especially after I saw Sailor Moon, and I absolutely loved it. And I had the mangas, and I think I had the whole series as a manga. I don't know if I have it still, but yeah. So that just jump started my love for anime. And there was other ones like Digimon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, anime movies such as My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Castle in the Sky, and those movies helped kind of introduce the anime craze to the US, which then created the Cartoon Network anime block Toonami in 1997. Oh, so this little house. I really wanted to have a playhouse, but there's not really anything in The Sims that makes sense for it except for this, and it's actually a roof object, like a roof decoration, and I just sized it up because it reminded me of like a playhouse. And the reason why I wanted to add it is because in the 90s, when I was younger, my favorite thing ever was to play house outside. I had like a plastic playhouse, and it was like my favorite thing in the world. And I would have like my dolls in there, and I would have a tea set, and so yeah, that's why it's there, and it's one of my favorite parts of this house. So speaking of TV, as I was talking about earlier, Nickelodeon's first animated series, which was like Doug, Rugrats, The Ren and Stimpy Show, they debuted in 1991, and one of Nickelodeon's most popular and longest running series, SpongeBob SquarePants, that started in 1999, and it became like a huge success. And I remember watching Doug. Doug was one of my favorite shows as a kid. And then there was Rugrats, and I actually kind of liked Rugrats, but again, I wasn't allowed to watch Rugrats because my mom was actually like afraid that I would be influenced by what's her name? the really bratty girl in Rugrats, and she's like older than the other ones. I can't even remember her name right now, but yeah, she thought that I would be influenced by her, so she didn't want me watching it. But in the same breath, she let me watch Ren and Stimpy, which was a way more influential show, so I don't know. She did her best. Animated kids shows kind of went through a renaissance too during this time, with, the Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs, Batman, the animated series, and Superman, the animated series. The hugely successful Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling, that actually happened in 97, and the series would go on to become the best-selling book series in the world with only 7 main novels. Goosebumps were also really popular, and those were by R.L. Stine, and they were the second highest grossing book series in the decade, behind Miss Rowling. So, yeah, I think Harry Potter was a hugely influential novel because not only was it a great story, but it actually encouraged kids to read and actually be interested in a story. So this is the little girl's room. In this family, I imagine having a boy toddler, a girl, like a kid, and then a teen girl and a boy. So there's 4 kids total. So I imagine the girl, she would probably be a lot like me, and I think that she would be a very creative and imaginative little girl, and kind of girly and into, like, I don't know, different things. And of course she has a journal. I had a journal when I was a kid, and I kept a journal from like age 10 all the way up until I was like 18 or so, and I have all my journals. I was so happy when they included a journal in this pack, because I don't know, it's just something that's a really cute detail to have, because it's so prevalent to what people actually did when they were, young. So this is the teen girl's room, and I imagine her to be kind of transitioning from a little kid to a teenager. So maybe she's like 13, and I imagine her to be younger than the brother. So with all the pictures that I saw of 90s bedrooms, like for a teen girl, I noticed that there was always a lot of shelves with like random stuff on it, and like the trolls and like figurines and just clutter on the shelves. So I wanted to incorporate that, and I definitely wanted a boombox. I actually had one in my room when I was growing up. It was humongous, and I think I got it for my 8th birthday, and I was so happy. But my dad actually had put the boombox like somewhere else. So when I opened the box, there was nothing in it. It was just paper, and I was so upset. My dad was that type of dad. Like, he would get like a joy out of tricking me when I wanted to open a gift, like putting a box in a box in a box. Yeah, that was my dad. This is the master bedroom, or the parents' bedroom. I remember in the 90s there was still, or in the late 90s, there was still this like, I don't know, the furniture in the bedroom for older people, or like mid-aged people. The furniture was always really clunky and big, and they were very matchy, because oftentimes you would get a furniture set together at some place like Rooms to Go or whatever. So that's kind of what I was trying to portray in their room. And I love these sheer curtains. I wish that they were a little less sheer, but overall I'm really happy with them, and I'm happy that they were added to the game. I think that they can go with a lot of different things, a lot of different styles, so yeah, pretty happy with that. So I'm pretty much done with the build. I'm just going to be adding this extra bedroom, and I think I have the toddler's bedroom after this, but it's nothing really too special, I promise you guys. It's just a toddler bed and some bookshelves, and that's pretty much it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something new and enjoyed getting to know me a little more, because this is the decade I grew up in, and I have some serious nostalgia feels while I'm doing these houses, like in the 90s, and I'm sure that I'll continue to have nostalgia feels in the 2000s. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching and supporting me and my channel, and for making this decade series so amazing to not only do, but just to read all your feedback, and that, you know, you guys are so involved in it. And I've met a lot of you lovely people through the decade build series, so I'm really grateful for that. And next week we'll be starting the early 2000s, and hopefully I'll find something a little easier than the late 90s, hopefully. And hopefully it won't be another suburban house, because I know you guys are probably like tired of it already. But yeah, so I will see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye.